Welcome to another episode of Me, My Wife, and Sports. I'm your host, Fitz, with my lovely co-host, Darci.
Hi.
All right. Super Bowl's over. March Madness is starting to pick up for college basketball. But as we know, there's always something when it comes to sports, whether it's professional or amateur. One thing I want to talk about before we get into the evaluations of the NIL for college as well as high school players is, I don't know, did you see the U.S. and Canada hockey game that took place? Well, it's funny, and I'll post it on our website, but I think it was 9 seconds into the game, and fight broke out between a Canadian player and a U.S. player. So obviously they had
They're
something.
always fighting in hockey, though.
Yeah, but they just did the face-off 9 seconds in the game, started the game. So these two players had some animosity that was going on. So we will, I'm sure, hear more about all that. And I don't know if you heard about the upcoming NBA All-Star weekend, but the NBA has done a major overhaul of the way they do things because they were losing viewership and people weren't in it anymore. Even the players were, as I would say, halfway doing it. So the NBA decided to break it down to many games during the break instead of one big All-Star game. So we'll see how that turns out.
So that's for next year?
No, that's this weekend coming up.
Oh, it's this weekend?
Yeah, for the All-Star game. We'll see how it works out, but you just never know. And you know that, what was it, Wemby? Is that his name? For San Antonio? Yes.
Wembanyama.
He's done well his first year with the NBA. So more to come with him. And as you know, the teams are winding down, getting ready closer to their playoffs and so forth. So we'll see. And that comes after.
The All-Star game already happened.
Did it? I thought it was this weekend coming up.
It was the 16th, 14 through 16.
Oh, disregard. See, I was wrong. That's why
I was like,
that's why I have
it ain't coming up.
And that's why it's not even talked about that much. You know, it was no big bang.
That's why I said, is that for next year?
Yeah.
You was talking about like it was going to happen.
I thought they were doing it this year. They might have done it this year because I didn't see anything with the All-Star game.
I don't know. I didn't watch it.
And everything I read was talking about that piece.
Did you watch it?
No. That's what I said. I didn't see it at all. All right. Player evaluations. Your thoughts?
I didn't know they did evaluations like they do.
And these aren't set numbers for sure, hard numbers,
right,
but close enough.
Oh, one thing, what I think is most interesting is how do they come up with that? They have an algorithm, okay, yeah.
Right.
But how do you determine what goes into the algorithm? And so, like they were talking about, there is still very, very subjective.
Oh, definitely.
And so it's going to all depend on who's doing the evaluation and at what time it gets put out. And then just what the person doing the evaluation thinks is important because they use so many factors. Like they said, it's...
I know they look at their social media page.
Right.
And also the deals that they made, whether it's like Nike, Gatorade, or whoever, they guesstimate the cost of that deal because, you know, Nike and all those folks put out a number. I don't know if it's the true number of what the deal is.
They start some evaluations even before they got NILs.
Oh, yeah.
So they're basing it on success in the sport, popularity, social media, the university ranking, family legacy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Comes into play. You know, if you have... That's why Arch Manning is so high, because he's a Manning. That's probably why Shador and Shiloh got the numbers that they did. I mean, a little bit of the formula includes family legacy. And then they also include their own individual achievements. Yeah, I've seen that list. But there are 5 different lists out there. So it just all depends on, that's why I said it's still very subjective.
Yeah. And On3 is one of the more reputable sites to do that evaluation. So with that said, as we talked about, you mentioned Arch Manning and also the On3 site, which is on3.com. They conduct evaluations of high school players, college players, and they even talk a little bit about the transfer portal and who's in it and where they're going and so forth. But the number one valuation seems to go to Arch Manning at $6.5 million. And he's not even a starter, is he?
Mm-mm.
Like you said, name.
Right.
And he's a what, junior?
He's a junior.
6'3", from New Orleans, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mannings are from New Orleans. I mean, we heard all about that from the Katrina days all the way. They were very involved and active in that community. And so they stayed very connected to that. So no surprise there.
Right. And he's at Texas playing football, backup quarterback. And hopefully, since he's a junior, hopefully next year he'll get that starting spot. I don't know if he's...
But Arch Manning, wasn't he? He was the one that said he wasn't going to... Oh, he didn't participate in the EA Sports. That's what it was. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And then, of course, at the number 2 spot, Cooper Flagg, who's a...
Oh, you're looking at overall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's a freshman, 6'8", and 195, a little light, playing for Duke, but he's a hell of a ball player. Just watched one of his recent games, and he was killing it. Now, for last year, 2024, Shador was the highest ranking NIL receiver. That's why I think they don't have him listed in the top 100 because he's, first of all, they're listing in the top 100 a lot of the college, and they're also doing high school, but I think they're looking more toward the future from the high school. Because one of the guys in high school that I mentioned before when we were talking was AJ DeBonce.
So you're in the high school thing now?
No, it's still in the top 100. He's number 6 on the ranking at $3.8 million. And again, these are evaluations and more so guesstimates and subjective, as Darci stated. And they also had a female who was ranked number 4, and she plays volleyball. And her name is Livy Dune. She's a senior, 5'6", from New Jersey.
She's gymnastics.
Is it gymnastics?
Yeah.
Okay. She's at LSU?
Yeah.
Yeah. And her evaluation is $4.1 million, which is awesome. Now, I'm trying to remember, when they're having the Olympic trials, were there a lot of LSU?
There were some LSU people there. I remember the sparkly purple outfits, but I don't know how many. But talking about valuations for NIL, some things I found interesting were the Big Ten leads in total compensation.
Really?
Yep. The Big Ten. And
wow.
The Big 12 is second.
I'm surprised at the SEC.
And then it's the ACC and the SEC is fourth.
Now, does that break
conferences,
it down? But does that break it down by sports or just overall?
I think it's overall.
Okay.
It's not by sport. Okay. It's just overall.
Oh, wow.
Total, because it's total compensation. So for all sports, it's overall. And then...
Well, there's some major schools in the Big Ten, so I can see that.
They said that volleyball, and I thought this is interesting just because we had Morgan on last time, volleyball is the 3rd highest grossing sport, making up 6.7% of total NIL money.
Wow.
Volleyball. Yeah. Women's volleyball at that, too. So I was like, okay, that's good for Morgan. Get out there.
Right.
Get you a ring.
What was the number 1 and 2 sports? Basketball and football?
Probably, yeah, basketball and football.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the NIL rules are different by state.
Right. I was reading on that.
Every state has a different.
Exactly.
And so what I found was they said athletes from all 15 schools in the ACC signed a letter to the senators asking for a federal bill to regulate the NIL. They said because right now it's like the wild, wild west
Where's this information? You say they. Where's this information coming from?
It was on ESPN article on NIL valuation.
Okay.
And it was dated 2025. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
Because a lot of stuff was
22,
was
23.
Old. Yeah.
24.
So they just wrote this letter. They signed it. In the letter, they said that it's like the wild, wild west right now with each state doing their own thing. And that makes it harder for the students when they are transferring and something else. They said, I can't remember what the other thing was.
Okay.
But I thought that was pretty interesting that they wrote to their senators.
Well, it makes sense. And like you said, every state is different because some states don't require you to have a letter in place going to a school.
Yeah.
You can.
From high school.
Right.
Yeah. So you got to know your state rules.
Exactly.
And then the one thing, it's funny that you mentioned that. They said that it's very important for athletes and parents and families to know these rules, because if you do one thing wrong, then you risk that athlete's eligibility.
Oh.
And so they said that the best way
You say they. You keep saying
this
that.
article.
Okay.
The article that I read. Now, I don't have the name of the article. Do you have the name of every article that you done?
I just see when you question them, they get all defensive on you. I just ask who is they in case our listeners want to know who they is.
Go to ESPN, Google NIL valuation, and you'll get the same list of articles that I got, and you can fact check me. Now, if you want to fact check me, just send us an email and I can give you specific locations.
There you go. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. But the rules are from the NCAA, if you want to fact check me. The only thing that is off limits is receiving money to commit to a school.
Right. I think that was across the board. Yeah.
Right. So that's like, so they were saying.
So basically, school can't say, I'll give you $10 million
to come to my school.
Well, the one player, I think it was Missouri or some school we were discussing, a player initially committed, but then they didn't pay him his money.
Right. So then he didn't want to play.
Transferred, yeah.
Yeah, because he had stopped playing. I think that was down in Florida somewhere.
Was that Florida?
I think so, but I have to go back and look at my notes, but I remember that.
Yeah.
So the article was speaking about the fact that you have to be very careful not to receive money from any unsanctioned NIL negotiations. So for all the high school kids, they say it's just best to wait until you have committed to a university before you take any money from anybody.
Right.
So that was the point I was trying to make. Is that it's best to know the rules, because they were making it sound like, and this, I said they because this is just I can't remember the article, but the article is making it sound like initially high school students could sign deals if they had a letter of commitment.
A letter of intent.
Or letter of intent.
Gotcha.
And so, but to me, after reading on ESPN, or I think it's collegenetworth.com. That's where I was at. After reading from there, it sounds like it would probably just be best to wait.
Yeah. Because also when you throw in the fact that it varies from state to state, so it's like, does the NCAA actually have a blanket rule? But are they part of the NCAA prior to?
You mean the person?
The person in high school, yeah. They can make all these deals. So the NCAA can't say they're ineligible because NIL.
But if you have broken the state rules.
Exactly. The state rules might hold you back. It's a mess, in my opinion, until they get a blanket standard across the board. It's going to be,
that's why
you said, it's the Wild Wild West.
That's what the kids from the 15 ACC schools said.
Yeah.
They said that. That's why they were writing their senators to get a federal bill.
Right. And I think in the long run, it'll help all the students, because all of them are not going to get big deals because everybody's not a superstar. So even though the person is on a team, locally they can garnish something if they're not the so-called superstar of the team. But those who have potential to go beyond college to the pros, or those in high school who have the potential to go to a major college, they are going to get a little bit more monies than the rest. But that goes back to your point that you made at our last conversation about them putting their money in a single pot and then splitting it up with all the athletes for that school.
I read somewhere, and I'm trying to find it now, but they said Bryce Young had made like $1 million. It was either $1 million or $3 million.
The quarterback Bryce Young?
Quarterback Bryce Young, when he was at Alabama, he made like $3 million off his social media.
I can believe that.
Before he ever became the starting quarterback.
Right. I can believe that.
Just in a backup position at Alabama as quarterback.
When you're talking Alabama.
But that might have been, I think Bryce might have been there under.
Well, Bryce, did he transfer?
Name? What's the coach? No, he didn't transfer. He graduated from Alabama.
Who was that one who was at Alabama as quarterback and transferred and did well? Was that Tua?
Tua transferred to Alabama?
No,
that was Jalen Hurts.
That
was Jalen Hurts.
Right.
He left because they had him in a backup and he wanted to go someplace where he could play.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he ended up winning the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Super Bowl quarterback. Absolutely.
Smart man or somebody in his corner was guys.
Somebody. We know he got an awesome team.
Right.
Jalen Hurts has an awesome team. So kudos to him for being smart enough to take their advice. Yeah. Because that's what it's all about.
And that's the key.
If you don't have, you can have great advisors, but if you ain't listening to none of them, it's falling on, you might as well be deaf. You're not paying attention. So I think the biggest lesson with this valuation thing, if you have a athlete up and coming, it's worth doing some reading, getting smart if they are any good, because
and talking to some agents, you know?
And I read an article that said, get an attorney, get a sports attorney.
Yes.
If you have an athlete, a child, or whatever, whoever you sponsoring, a kid, grandkid, niece, nephew, little brother.
Because you don't want to get caught up in a loophole.
You don't want to, you don't want to do something innocently and then ruin that person's opportunity for the rest of their life, because that money thing, that's how they're going to eliminate people.
Yes. And one thing I can highly stress is let your child be part of the situation, the negotiations.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely should.
Educate them. Don't let them sit to the sideline and you make all the decisions when it comes to the NIL piece. No, let them get educated on the business side of things.
Yeah, that's the point. It's like not for parents to be out there making the decisions. They ain't playing no ball. So they shouldn't get to make the decisions, but you probably are paying for college. So you do have I guess they would be on a scholarship. Okay.
Yeah, they're paying. You're giving some monies.
They giving something. They supporting that kid in school because they not. And maybe there's some parents that kids are not getting scholarships. Right. But the fact of the matter is, get educated, read, learn, so that you can speak intelligently when you in these meetings. Because if you are not just a little bit educated, people are out there and they will take advantage of you.
Yes, they will. It's always somebody lurking in the distance.
And you got to be read everything before you sign it, ask questions. There's never a dumb question. No such thing as a dumb question. Yeah, and
especially
ultimately,
if you got an athlete who's making NIL money now in high school, get a lawyer and don't try to do it all on your own.
Are they paying kids in high school now, though?
Yeah, if they're doing an NIL, they're
for high school.
Well, let me put it this way: they like some of those folks that we mentioned, like that one kid I mentioned, who's more than likely going to go to Duke. What did I say his last name was? But anyway, he's still in high school, and he's probably making money now based on, especially
for who though? I mean,
for himself.
Is he under what sport? Is he promoting the high school or is he promoting the college?
Himself. It's not like, for example, AJ DeBonsa. He's at Utah Prep, which is in Brockton, Massachusetts, and he's going to BYU, but he's currently in high school. He'll graduate. this year, class of 2025.
Okay.
And the thing is that, say he goes to an athletic store, signs autographs. He's signing autographs. True that it's somebody has a picture of him playing high school ball. He's probably signing that, but he's just signing his name and his number. He's not signing.
But none of them do.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So he's not working for the high school. He's making that money for himself.
So what is different? Is there any difference between high school, NIL, and college?
Yes, because in college, there's two avenues in college. Some of these players are signing revenue streams with colleges, meaning when that college uses your name, likeness, or image, they're getting paid, but you're getting paid as well. But if I go to, say, Duquesne University, and a local store is like, hey, can you come sign some autographs? Because everybody knows you from Duquesne University.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go there and I would sign autographs, pictures more than likely that they have of me in a uniform, a Duquesne University uniform. So I would just sign those things and get paid. But I'm getting the money for myself and not really working for the school in that perspective, whether it's high school or college. Now, like I mentioned before, some players have worked out revenue streaming deals with colleges. For example, if you come to my college, I give you 10% of everything that we make off your NIL things, name, image, or likeness, aside from the normal put your pictures in the program for the games and stuff like that. But,
so Alabama does not permit NIL monetization?
Is that what it says?
I'm just wondering if I'm reading this. Yeah, I'm looking at the NIL rules by state.
Mm-hmm.
It says not permitted. I'm just wondering. I'm going to have to look at it. We have to do some more on this.
But usually that's how it works. It's not the high school getting money off of it. Now, if they work out a deal, I'm sure. But the individual is the one who's really getting the money because they're just signing their name to a lot of stuff or taking pictures as a representative as a basketball player. And of course, if you go to a high school X, all the people from that high school going to support you or even in the town.
So Alabama, they could be hurting. They probably didn't care about it. If that's true, they probably didn't care about it before because you had Saban there and everybody just wanted to play for Saban and he was always at the top of his game. And so I guess players there weren't worried about NIL because they were thinking more bigger picture. But if he's not there, and I don't know, how did Alabama football? Well, they still. I mean, they states good, but there are a lot of states that, if I'm reading this right, don't allow.
Is that from high school or is that college level?
No, this is college level.
Because I'm thinking those NIL guys or those guys who getting NIL deals in college.
No, maybe this might be high school.
Alabama is more likely to learn it as well.
Like, this can't be right. Maybe it
Definitely.
is.
Unless it's high school.
Maybe it is high school.
But I don't see that in college because a lot of those guys have been doing things across the media platform.
Yeah, I was going to say, how is the biggest Alabama? They probably were really pissed about that.
Yeah.
It's high school.
That's what I kind of figured.
So even with high school.
And again, that's state to state. So
some states permit it, some states don't.
Right.
Okay. I don't think it should be allowed in high school, personally.
And your reason why?
Because, I mean, you need to be focused on getting out of high school.
Well, you can say that about college, too.
You could be focused on, but everybody don't make it through college.
Everybody don't make it through high school.
No, everybody doesn't make it through high school, but that should, if you are on this kind of a track, then you got to make it through high school.
Right.
So then that should be your focus. It should be on playing your sport and graduating so that you have options, not so much about making as much money as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, these kids, well, not all of them, some of them, all they see is dollar signs and don't understand what comes along with all of it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they just want to make the money however they can.
Right.
But that normally comes at a cost.
And a lot of these top athletes, they start a social media page, it blows up. because either people want to comment on it or just follow them. But then you have the good and the bad. So these advertisers look at that, and I'm sure they got a section where they're following top athletes or top whatever, so they can get their product endorsed, whether it's on that person's social media site or whatever.
I think some of these players, when they go into this transfer portal, I think they're looking at all of that. They're looking at what the state rules are and how much money they can make and how can they do it, as well as what school and what coach is going to get them to whatever their goal is.
Right.
So it's very interesting. I don't know. I'd like to talk to someone one day to see, okay, they said your evaluation was $3.8 million. How accurate was that when you wrote a deal?
Right.
Because anybody can say anything. That's subjective too.
Right.
But you only worth, and your name, image, and likeness, know this, is only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it.
Just like art.
Just like everything. So they can tell you that you worth $100 million, but if ain't nobody willing to pay you that, guess what? You might not be.
Exactly.
So I just don't know how this is going to play out. Don't know it.
It's a lot
the federal government got a whole lot of other things to be worried about rather than NIL right now. But
hopefully they're not involved at all.
They need to. I would have thought the NCAA would have came out with some rules.
Maybe they still working on it.
The schools to implement.
Yeah, I think they do have some things, but I think a lot of their stuff is generalized and it's not down to specifics, because like with schools, things are a little bit different depending on where you're at. Like, for example, like 2024 in review when it comes to NIL earners, Shador, he was the top NIL earner for 2024 at $6.5 million. Now, is that a accurate evaluation, or is that part of that formula to evaluate what he's got based on? I know he had deals with Nike, Beats by Dre, Gatorade, Mercedes-Benz, Google, Under Armour. So he had a lot of deals, and maybe some things were released saying that he made a certain amount. Who knows? But for 2024, the number 2 spot was the Travis Hunter at $5.7 million. And
I saw that.
It's funny because, first of all, he has a deal with Adidas, which is my favorite, and United Airlines, which I thought was kind of different. That's a major airline company. And he also has a deal with a Michael Strahan brand. So, and as well as American Eagle Airline.
Who's that?
Travis Hunter.
Oh, okay.
And of course, for 2024, the number 3 was Arch Manning at $5.5 million. Again, just a guess. And he has a deal with, what is it? Panini America. I don't know what that is. But that was one of the things that was listed in an article that was written last year by First Round Mock. And the article is written December 31st, 2024 by Victoria Jonick, and where she talks and looks at the top NIL earners of 2024 along with their deals. So
interesting.
I don't know if you heard of Quinn Ewers, Ewers. He's a quarterback. I forget what's
for Texas.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's there for $2.8 million. And kid has a deal with like Hulu, Dr. Pepper, and Nicholas Air, which is a private flight company. So these kids can make deals, and it doesn't have to be a national brand. It could be a local brand where they're at and still get paid some pretty good money. So,
yep, it's going to be interesting.
It is. All right. That brings our show to the final few minutes. And as always, I always like to do a little known sports fact. You might know it, might not. Never know. All right. This is dealing with soccer. Did you know a soccer field is called a pitch? Did you know that?
Yeah, because I watched Wrexham with
and they say the reason it's called that.
That's what they call it, the pitch.
Yeah. And the reason it's called that is because the field is pitched or sloped by 5 degrees upwards from the end to the other end. And I didn't realize that. I thought it was all level.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And of course, the team switched sides at each half. But basically, you're going slightly uphill, which is even worse.
Right.
You know,
the question is, do the players know that?
I'm sure. I hope they do.
They'd be wondering why when they get close to the goal, they get more tired.
Right. But that's our little known fact. And also, if you want to leave us a message or anything, you can send us an email at memywifeandsports@yahoo.com or go to our website, memywifeandsports.buzzsprout.com. Listen to some of our other episodes or just shoot us a message saying you like what you hear or you want to hear something different, and we will try to oblige you.
Absolutely.
And also, I'd like to thank our new listeners from Japan as well as Australia, Sydney, Australia. You know, welcome to our podcast, and we appreciate you listening to us. Well,
yes.
With that said, Darci, do you have any final
Nope, it was a good talk, and hopefully everybody picked up something that they didn't know before. And have a good day, stay warm, and remember your mate is a reflection of you.